when you're sitting down with someone, coming up with a new project, coming up with new designs, coming up with a new thing, you've not worked with them beforehand. How can they, right? So tons and tons and tons of business people out there are going to be sat there being like, don't want to work with a video editor, don't want to work with a designer because I don't know what I'm doing, right? So how can they make the job as easy as possible for Senor Creative over here, like your good self, to be like, great, got it, I know where you're going, let me come and create something.
Well, see, that's a problem I have with other designers. So immediately what that does, it puts the onus on the other person to make my life easier, which it shouldn't do. It's on me to make their life easier.
Okay.
So they shouldn't have to concern themselves with what they know or how they should translate it to me. I'm not sure, because if you don't know anything about design, you haven't got a clue how to convey that.
No.
How am I going to articulate that to someone? I'll see it and I'll know it. So the vast majority of people who come to me start with that sort of conversation. They're like, I genuinely don't know, Dave. I haven't got a clue what I want. So, but any designer worth their salt will then know to sit down and have a proper conversation with them about what message are you trying to convey, who you're trying to convey it to, what's the end goal of this thing we're designing.
Yeah.
What do you want people to do after they've seen it? What do you want them to do while they're looking at it? Where are their eyes supposed to be drawn to first? And what age group are these people? What demographic are they? Like, what emotion are you trying to convey? And through all of that, you will get to, well, this is what we need to do.
Right.
And it's, and down to, right, well, what are your competitors doing? And right, and they're dull, right? Okay, so let's not be that. Let's do something else that kicks people in the face. And how many other things are those people seeing on a daily basis? You need to be the one that cuts above the noise. So, and a lot of that people find very uncomfortable to do something that cuts above the noise. And I'm not even talking about doing anything controversial.
Sure, nothing risque and such. We're just actually like
just doing something that is different, which can be as simple as, all right, Dave, we're an accountancy firm. Cool. I'm going to throw some hot pink in there. And we're going to, and it can be something
not just grays and, shocking.
And your stock photos going out the window. Yeah. We're going to throw some vibrant colors on here. And we're going to
tell me, why does this shot of the London skyline, what does that say about accountancy? Right? Why have you got that as your homepage picture?
Well, we're based in London and we want people to know that.
Well, you're not based in London, are you? You're based in Wimbledon. That's south of London. You've got a picture of a square mile on your website.
Yeah. So that would be my thing. That would be the main thing I would say to people is do not concern yourself with what you know and how to, and don't be afraid with how uncomfortable you might feel translating what it is you actually want, because anybody who knows what they're doing will bring that out of you naturally. So you shouldn't have to worry yourself with knowing any of the technical terms, because I don't like any of them anyway.
I love that because I'm the same, right? We give marketing consultancy, we create content left, right, and center, design, video, etc. I hate acronyms. I just think they're silly, and mostly because I worked in IT for a decade.
And it's full of them. Yeah.
Well, not only is it full of them, but like different. My best example is just before I left the industry. Someone had come in the business that I was working in, and he was like, "What we really need to do is get us our SMEs on more phone calls." And I was like, "Hell yeah." Love that, because I'm always going after SMEs. I'd love more phone calls with SMEs. And he's like, no, our SMEs. And I'm like, our existing clients? He's like, no, our subject matter experts. I'm like, oh, so not our small, medium enterprises.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely what
everybody thinks SME stands for. Yeah.
Sure's, right? I thought so. And he was like, no, SMEs, enterprises. Right. So I was actually, and my big thing I always did in IT was I never tried to learn the tech. I just very early on was like, cool, I'm not going to get this. I can get I can get what it's going to solve, and I can get the high level brushstrokes. But as soon as someone needs details, unless I go to school for a year every time we're releasing a new product and trying to make a phone call, I'm not going to be able to do it. So I specifically tried not to learn too much. And since I want more information, we just set up another phone call with them. But that kind of, I'd be sat at the back of a bunch of meetings, high level people, very important clients, and be like, yo, you said an acronym. Can we just say once every acronym, all the words once?
Get them out of your system.
Yeah, just once. If you're going to use it, just think, have I said what that is? So I'd always use that at the back there. But I've brought it into this because whereas in IT, I was talking to CTOs, right? I was talking to the technology manager within the business who knew stuff, usually was significantly more informed than me. In marketing, not always. Like a lot of the time, and even if the business understands marketing, usually a lot of the time I'm then saying, cool, let me go and speak to that subject matter expert. Let me go and speak to that person within the business who knows stuff, because it's great having marketing people say marketing things, but actually usually the people who are really good at showing what the business does are the people doing things, right?
Yeah.
So being able to capture them and say, we bet your knowledge is all we need, but you can't talk to these people and say, hey man, the ROI of the ROAS is going to be far higher with the click engagement, because they're like,
you can use them if saying the letters makes a funny word.
Yeah.
So if the acronym is NOB or it's RIM, so
all of a sudden you get a massive buy-in from the client.
Yeah. Then use them away. Use the RIM and the job and the. Okay, I'll stop.
Now, I want somebody start working on new acronyms. I want them all over the office.
Yeah.
So ideas, right? We work in different ends of the same problem. Basically, we're trying to talk to people and say, I'm the same with you, right? I don't bombard people with how much I know and all the words I know and all the acronyms I know. I try and say, hey, what do you know? And like think of ways that we can get that out and position that message. The hardest thing people always have, the place where they're like, yeah, I mean, you're good at this, Jay, but I couldn't do this, is coming up with ideas. Right? Just where do you come up? Where do you like pull those ideas out the back of your head? So how do you, when, obviously that's kind of your jam constantly. And, if we don't have a design, you're just sitting there being like, this could be yellow and a circle. Where do you even, how do you help your clients and how can they help themselves come up with those ideas? Like think of the creative in the first place.
Yeah. Okay. So here's how we can get into this. So I write down everything. So I've got a terrible memory, right? It's awful. The fact that I'm here at all is amazing.
I am impressed.
So I write down absolutely everything. So I use Trello religiously, right? Trello is like my go-to, and it's essentially my head in an app. So I've got tons and tons of little boards like this, which are full of loads of little things. And if I scroll right, these go on for days. I've got so many of and I've got tons of little boards. So every little idea that comes into my head goes onto one of these, and there's multiple different boards that I can go into, and each one of them has lists and lists of things and things. So I find that really useful. And the interesting thing about that is every daft little idea, no matter how premature it might be and unthought through, but every kind of little, maybe that, it will go on there. And I find that useful because the mere act of sort of typing something out helps me remember that it exists, and I can always go back and flick through them. It does mean that when I have separate ideas, I can then think of how two different things will then work together, which may not.
Yeah.
So, because I wouldn't be able to do that naturally just in my own head. It's not wired in that way. I've got to have everything kind of written down. So as an example, right? So I've got this in the works, so I can mention it without fear of anyone stealing it. Not that it's good enough for anyone to steal. So here's an idea of something I'm working on at the minute, right?
Exclusive.
Which is, we'll tell you how the idea came first. My wife and I have been watching. Have you seen Lego Masters?
Yes. What a show!
It's amazing, isn't it? So it's like a little competition show where they build Lego, and it's brilliant, right? The Aussie one is the one we've just watched, right? The Australian one, and it's brilliant. But there's a guy, and if you've seen it, there's a couple on there, young couple, and the guy had every time you saw him, he was wearing a shirt that was covered in patterns, really cool t-shirts and shirts he wore. And my wife was just getting annoyed watching it. She was like, why can I not find clothes that cool? These are awesome. I can't find stuff with cool patterns all over it. And we were sitting there and I was like, why don't we just make some? It's like, tell me a cool pattern and we'll just make it, and we'll find someone to print it and we'll do it. And she went, oh yeah, I forget you can do stuff. So I had made a note on here. I was like, patterned clothing. Find cool patterns, make some patterned clothing. And in there it went, and it'll come up another time, I'm sure. And then recently I was having a chat with a friend of mine about where we are pandemically, right? And how I was talking about the fact that I haven't been sick for about 2 years in any way, right? I haven't had a cold, haven't had anything. And I find that quite sad, right?
It means you haven't been around enough people.
My world has become so sterile that I haven't been sick in any way, and that actually concerns me. Like I want to catch things. So we were talking about, we're worried that we're becoming just a society of people just afraid of germs.
Yeah,
and we need germs; they're very important. So we were having that conversation, and I was like, how could you get people just to fall in love with bacteria again and stop being, we shouldn't go through life washing our hands after we've touched a door handle. Like that can't be the way we live.
No.
So I was like, yeah. So we're talking about, we're worried that's where we're just going to stay. We're here doing that now for a good reason, but in 5 years' time, are we going to just keep cleaning ourselves after every interaction?
Our children are going to grab their mobile phones and some hand wash as they leave the doors. Like,
and kids are a perfect example. Like, they could be getting sick every 5 minutes. Like, throw everything at them. Their immune system needs to learn how to, fight against this stuff.
Of course, yeah.
So I was thinking about, how could you get people to just not be too concerned about germs again? And then another idea hit about how let's all be comfortable getting covered in germs. And then I went back to the note about patterned clothing. Yeah. So now I'm creating a series of t-shirts that they're bacteria, different types of bacteria, but they're just covered. They're all over the t-shirt. So the range is going to be called Covered in Germs.
Nice.
But it's just, so it's all over. So I'm going to take about 10 or 15 different types of bacteria, create little characters for them that can appear in repeatable patterns.
Cool.
And it's going to be a range of clothing called Covered in Germs. And
so I love that, because without the first idea of just scribbling it down and saying like, that's cool, we should make clothes. I like that. Patterns are nice. I do like patterns. That is a cool little, on the back burner list, right at the back of your head. Because you're right, it does sit in your head. As soon as you put something down, it's like it's more solidified. I've said it a lot, but when I used to learn songs, like other people's songs, the only way I'd be able to learn every lyric, so it is just like total recall. I say total recall, I'm an idiot. I always have to have someone shout out the first line. But the only way I'd be able to learn it, and I remember doing it for like, you can literally see it. So Sally can wait. Don't look back in anger. Back in the day when I was like listening to it off the radio, right? And I'd found it in a book, right? And I'd found it in a book, and I'd read the lyrics, and I was like, cool. The only way I'd get it solidified in my mind was writing out the lyrics.
Yeah.
By the time I'd written them out, I could pretty much screw up the piece of paper and throw it away, because like the act of scribbling in my chicken scratch handwriting just kind of like, my brain has done it then. So it is in the back of your head. Same thing. If I put it down, like I'll send out emails to a team all night. Throughout the night, I'll be sending out some emails. Really, it's so that when someone says tomorrow, like, hey, you mentioned, I know all about that now, because it's in the back of my head by writing it down. But I love the fact, if you hadn't written that first idea down, then a bullshit conversation with your friend about the thing doesn't easily then get fit into that idea to become something useful, like a really good idea. So what do you suggest? That people just have a open workbook, like that idea down.
Always write things down. I mean, it's different for everybody. It depends how your brain works, but for me, this is the best way.